The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Stand by, everyone, for maximum flippancy from Kev. It's just about to arrive at platform 9 3/4. We've been watching the Harry Potter films, as you can tell. Right, we've got to a stage, Kev, where that's the end of this show. There's no more FujiCast. After this week, it's done. Finished. Out of this.
That's it.
No,
I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all over. It's all over. Unless there's one way that we can save this show. Just one way.
Lots of money.
And that is...
Oh, no, lots of money.
Questions. If you do not send us your questions, we ain't got nothing to answer back with.
Yes, that's the whole point about this show. It's all about questions. And we've got enough questions for this week, Kev, but after that, next week, you're in the diary. I've got Kev, diary, but I might go and walk the dog, which we don't have instead. You have to send me Git, and I could go and walk Git for a little while.
We need questions, people, and also we obviously do have the Facebook group where lots of questions go on there, and we do dip in and out of that, and that is absolutely fine, and we do not want to stop you doing that. However, always be aware that you can send us an email via the Shiny website or via the email click@fujicast.co.uk, or you could even just send us a letter in the post. Does not matter.
No.
Yes, and it doesn't even have to be about Fujifilm cameras.
All right.
It doesn't have to be about tech. It can be about business. It can be about photography. It can be about weddings. It can be about
anything.
Anything.
Otherwise, next week I'm walking Get the dog.
The FujiCast.
That's what's happened. You haven't sent him to me. You did promise last week you were going to wrap him up and send him down, but he didn't arrive. I've been looking at the.
Want him today?
Really?
Not after what he's just done.
What's he just done?
No, I'm not telling you.
Oh no, he's not done another one of those things where he just does what dogs do in the middle of the kitchen. Says, "Well, you're not letting me out, so I just help myself."
Well, yes, quite. He's
oh no,
disgrace.
not one of those moments, is it?
He's lying in front of the fire. The good thing about being at home is that I can sit in my living room and have a roaring open fire, which is very nice.
Is that what you've got now? Have you got a roaring open fire behind you as the podcast goes on?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, Gemma, bless her, she ordered. She said, "I've ordered some logs, which should last us a couple of weeks." Great. She ordered 1 cubic meter, and I said to her, "That's a lot of logs." No, it'll be fine. We'll be able to put it in the log hatch. It turned up on the back of a massive lorry. So we've got enough logs to last until 2025.
If you want to keep warm, just go round to the Mullins. That's where
they're everywhere.
That's where to keep warm.
It's like a Finnish sauna house in here. We've got wood everywhere.
Blimey. Well, today you and your questions from our electronic mailbag. Yes, we have enough for this week, and of course also the FujiCast private Facebook group will dip into there. As Kev said, you don't have to be a Fujifilm shooter to feel a part of this show. Thank you to our friends who've now supported us on Patreon. I don't think we mentioned you last week, but for the price of a coffee, keeps the show growing, but most importantly, actually going. And a guest, around about just shy of 4 months ago, I spoke to a photographer called Ian Treherne, who I'd seen featured on the BBC, and he is the self-titled. Is it self-titled, or is it? I think initially he wasn't too keen on the title, but he sort of assumed it now. The blind photographer. Kev, Ian can only see with he's got 95% blindness, 5%. Vision, and even that is gradually disappearing, and he's profoundly deaf. But the pictures and the stories that he produces are great. Now, I just thought actually it might be a treat. I've re-edited it because we had a longer sort of series thing around it, so I've re-edited it in sort of FujiCast fashion, because I know there's FujiCast listeners who don't listen to Photography Daily, and I thought that might be a bit of a treat. Before we start into today, though, Kev, this month we've been supported by our good friends at Sprout Studio, and if you're thinking, hang about, things are getting serious now, I need to get my business in order for 2021 so I can kick 2020 right into touch, here's something your business could certainly benefit from, wherever you are in the world.
Sprout Studio is an all-in-one studio management suite built for photographers by photographers. You get your CRM, galleries, email marketing, scheduling, and bookkeeping all in one place. My name is Brian Caparici, and I'm a Fuji photographer, having photographed weddings and portraits for 15 years now. I'm also the CEO and founder here at Sprout Studio. This Black Friday, not only can you save, but we've gathered everything you need to redo 2020 and start next year on the right foot. Visit sproutredo.com/podcast to learn more today.
And of course, we'll have a nice link for you for Sprout Studio on the FujiCast.co.uk show page for today. So make sure you visit. Right, who's going to do the first question? Who's the book of the week, by the way, Kev?
The book of the week is John Chilllingworth and his pictures from the Picture Post. Nice little book. Talk about that later.
All right, look forward to that. Right, you go first for the questions, Kev. We're still remote, of course, for the foreseeable until we're allowed to be in the same room together, obviously, in the same studio together. But you go first. If you can see the questions.
We were talking about this off air. I've got this massive microphone in front of me, and because I'm using the laptop, it's very difficult.
Well, Kev, let me explain this. It was my Christmas present to you last year, I think, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. Give me this big fluffy thing.
I bought Kev this huge, it's like a huge foam. It's almost, it must be at least a foot wide, maybe a little bit more. And it sits over the top of the microphone you've got. And it should cut down the echo in the room. That's the idea of it. It's more than just a microphone windshield. It's kind of like supposed to cut out the echo as well. But the problem with it is that you can't actually see around it to see the screen.
No, it's huge. What they should do on this thing to make it more interesting is have a picture on it or something.
What of?
Something. Well, I don't know, anything to look at. I'm just looking at a big black circle.
Gillian Anderson's my current favourite. I mean, you could have look a bit like Gillian Anderson's head. The microphone is that large, Kev. You insert your favourite actor, actress, whatever gender here. But shall we move on with the questions before we get in trouble?
Right, first question. This is from Tim.
Yeah.
He says, "G'day, Kevin, Neil. A couple of technical questions for Fujifilm technical staff." Well, we're not technical staff, but maybe we can give our thoughts at least.
Yeah.
And the question is, will Fujifilm be adopting the future of HEIF, which is, for those in the know, high efficiency image format,
glad you said that.
while retaining JPEG and RAW as options? If they do support it, will the Fujifilm presets be able to be applied to the HEIF output? What do you think about that then, Neil?
You lost me at whatever the first word in that email was.
Okay, so you probably actually are using HEIF. You may not even know it in your Apple phones, because I think they were the first ones. Apple were the first ones to support it.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
In their camera phones. So HEIF is a format. It is part of the JPEG consortium. Or is it? I think it's the MPEG consortium. So it's a compressed version of a file, and it does seem to be taken off, and a few more places are using it. However, saying that, I did have a quick gander on Wikipedia about this morning, and whilst people like Apple and Adobe are supporting it, there's not much more. There's not a lot more going on. Microsoft have released an update to Windows 10, so you can look at HEIF files there. And I would say until it becomes the standard, which it may well do in the future, then I doubt it will be the format of choice for many cameras. But saying that, that's just my opinion, my thoughts. It is open. It's open technology. So unlike DNG, the DNG format, which is still controlled by Adobe, even though it was supposed to be released by them, HEIF is an open consortium. So it has more of a chance of being taken on board by all of the other companies. I wouldn't imagine, I may well be wrong, but I wouldn't imagine it's number one on the list of the to-do list in Tokyo on Fujifilm's. They've got this little whiteboard on the wall, number one. Number 2, number 3.
Is there a board that says "we will consider"? Because I know you always say they never say no.
We shall consider.
We shall consider. Is there a we shall consider board?
We shall consider. Yeah, it's got all of my ideas on it.
It's your very own special Kevin Mullins corner.
So that's the answer. Well, that's my thoughts on it. I really don't know. Maybe if Andreas ever listens to the show, or Carl, or anybody, the guys at Fujifilm UK might have a different opinion on that. They are in the Facebook group, so maybe they will dip in. But if they do, also let me know anything different. We shall mention it next week. Or, well, no, there might not be one next week.
No, that's right. We might be walking the dog. Are we allowed to be together this time next week? No. Is it still closed? Oh, we're not.
Well, it depends what you mean by be together. So the 2nd of December, I think, is in, I don't know, about 11 days' time, isn't it? However,
hang on, where are we?
You are allowed to walk the dogs with somebody else from a different household.
You can do that now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So we could potentially be together.
Oh, we could, yeah.
Outside.
Yeah.
Not allowed to go in your garden, though.
No.
I'm allowed to walk along the street, and you can walk the dogs together, but heaven forbid if I was to step into your garden, that's not allowed.
The alarms would go off, Kev.
The alarms would go, because we all know that coronavirus only hangs around in gardens.
Well, it's sat
doesn't
out there.
Hang around on the streets.
I can see it. It's sat in the seat just out there. I know we shouldn't get flippant about it, obviously, but yeah, it's one of those consistency things, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe yes, no. Whoever knows.
Whoever knows.
But yeah, so the HEIF is a format that's pretty good. It is good.
This one's been hanging around for quite a while, actually. Wayne Lorimer. Kia ora, chaps, from New Zealand. Love the podcast, yada, yada, yada. Your banter always makes me laugh out loud. It can be a bit tricky because I often listen at work. I shoot with a Fuji X-T5, absolutely love it. Staunch SLR style user across 30 years, but I also love the film recipes to get the filmic look like I want straight out of camera. I realise that the X-T5 is an old camera now with an X-Trans 2 sensor, so I'm somewhat limited with the film simulation parameters I can set. A lot of the recipes that I've seen online, they're created specifically for the X-Trans 2 sensor. Tweak the white balance colour to better replicate the colours of the films that they're emulating. However, on the X-T5, the white balance change seems to be global, in that if I change the hues in the white balance setting, it changes all the film simulations. Can't seem to save different white balance hue changes for individual film recipes on the X-T5 with a question mark. Am I doing something wrong, Kev? Or is this a limitation of the X-Trans 2 sensor and custom settings in the X-T5? Keep up the fantastic work.
You just can't do it on the X-T5. No, you can do it on X Pro 3, X-T4, that kind of stuff. But X100V, X-T5, nope, cannot do that customization.
Sorry about that.
Sadly, but it's a great camera. The X-T5, that was the first XE camera that I did buy. Yeah, and do
you still have it?
It was ace.
Do you still have it?
It is a very good camera. Yeah, I have. Yeah, because I did sell a load of stuff before the first lockdown, and I think I do still have it because I never got an XE3. I got an XE2. Yeah, I do still have it. Yeah.
Well, that one was answered straight away, so I've got another one. Mike Wootton. Wedding awards, ? Interesting. What are everyone's thoughts? I know that the 2020 Wedding Awards, run by a company in Australia, recently listed winners in different categories. On investigation, I find some had not traded for a year. I think, Kevin, Neil, you've discussed this a while back on your podcast, so thoughts again. Do wedding awards mean nothing? ?
Well, your thoughts?
Do you know what? I haven't entered a wedding awards for a long, long time. The reason I didn't enter was not because I didn't win, because that would make me sound like a bad loser. But the same, it seemed to me that the judging favoured one style of wedding photography and one style only, which seemed to be sort of the very trendy new wave, and nothing else really made the grade, and it just felt to me like it was judged by people of one genre of wedding photography, and with very little appreciation of anything outside that genre.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's two angles to this question from Mike. It's, do clients appreciate awards?
Well, let's deal with that one first then.
Okay.
Because I don't think they care. I don't know. I think it gives you some credibility on your. I think it used to give you more credibility, but everybody's an award winner these days.
Yeah.
You just look at award winning this, award winning that, and what that's done really is it's just watered the whole purpose behind them down, and it's just become, well, I wouldn't want to say irrelevant because I don't think it's irrelevant. It shows obviously that you've applied yourself, but I wonder whether they have the credibility. And I think your clients probably wonder that as well now.
Well, I mean, don't forget, a wedding client specifically, has no idea. So, they get up, they get married, they get engaged, and then they enter the wedding bubble. Up until that point, they've never been in the wedding bubble, so they have no idea about awards and styles and things like that. So they stumble across a website, and let's give two scenarios. It's a website with really wedding pictures on it, but says award winning. And then they go to another website with really good pictures, but doesn't have award winning on it. Which one are they going to choose?
Well, I'd like to think they'd choose the latter. They're going to go for what's made them, what's made their experience sort of interesting when they visited the website, or made them feel more emotional.
Correct, but of course, if they're if it's a toss up between two potential photographers, and one is laden with awards, and and the images are both very good, and they're I'm in an hour, and then perhaps it would tilt the swing, so to speak. Is it a swing? Right. No, seesaw. Tilt the seesaw. I'm rubbish at those kind of statements.
Kevism.
It is a Kevism. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to be negative about awards because I've entered them in the past. I also, like you, haven't entered one for a long time. I judged them for a long time, and it's hard because I feel like, look, we all have to make money and we all have to earn a living, and a lot of these award companies are there to basically earn money and make a living, and there's nothing wrong with that intrinsically. However, I feel like if you just keep entering awards, and some of these are quite expensive to enter, and they do it on a monthly basis, and you can end up spending hundreds and thousands of pounds a year just to stick a badge on your website. For me, I don't do that any longer, but I can also appreciate the people that do want to do that, and you've got to find a system that has integrity, though. You have to find an award system that has integrity, and there are some out there, but at the same time there are some that don't have that integrity, and you've got to do your own research on that, I think.
Well, let's look at BAFTAs and Oscars and things like that. They don't get the actors to write to everybody that's watched their film and say, "Hey, come and vote for me." I mean, and that's one of my issues with it. That you have to, I don't like this sort of badgering clients to say, "I'm in the awards, please go and vote for me, I could win." That, for me, that doesn't seem like a panel of experts that have gone out, done the homework, looked around, seen who's making images, perhaps got some ideas from photographers emailing in their interests for these awards, but then sat down as a panel and thought, right, what do we think really represents the industry at the moment, in either weddings or portraits or whatever, instead of the donkey work, if you like, being given back to the photographer. Hey, go and badger a load of your clients and get them to vote for you on the website. That, for me, just no longer sits comfortably.
Yeah, I agree totally. I don't like that either. And also I don't like it when you're on Facebook groups or whatever, and it's, hey, look, I've been nominated for an award. Can you just click this link and go and I'm entry number 5 or whatever. And, I'm like, but actually I prefer entry number 4. So then you have a dilemma there as well. You've got your little ethical dilemmas going on. So, well, yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things. It's here. It's good in some ways. It's negative in other ways. But ultimately, I really, really do not think that clients would pick somebody based on their awards. I think they pick people based on their pictures, their style, their business model, all of that stuff. And for that reason,
I'm not investing. I'm out. Did you have a second point to that? Because we sort of said first point was, or have we kind of covered it as well, did it?
Yeah, so we kind of merged them really. The first point is the client's point of view, and then the photographer's point of view. It is a really tough one because I've entered awards. I say award winning on my website. I list the awards.
I know.
I was landscape photographer of the year once.
That was the most amazing award that you've ever won. You've had one. Yeah. You've taken one landscape picture and put it in a landscape competition. You only went and won it.
I did, yeah, and. Yeah, and do you know what I won?
What?
I won an X100S.
Really?
Yeah, it was an SWPP thing. Wow. So I won a Fujifilm X100S for a landscape photo.
Didn't you already have one?
Of course, I already had one.
I was going to say.
It was very interesting. But no. So honestly, I don't want to sound like the Grinch. Although, well, if I see another Christmas tree in November.
Oh, Kev, we were going to put ours up last weekend, I'd say. I was feeling all Christmassy. We got a friend of ours, by the way, who is the marketeer's dream come Christmas. She's the mother of our eldest, Jack's best friend. And she buys, it's a sort of running joke in our families, that she buys everything if it has Christmas written on it. So, for example, if you get mulled wine soap, she'd be in there. Mulled wine soup. Mulled wine soup. Got to have some mulled... Did I say soap or soup?
Soap, you said.
Either or, they would work both the same with her. She'd eat both. just loves Christmas.
No,
so
I love Christmas too, but not until December.
Yeah,
I broke our house rule. We have a house rule that no Christmas films until the 1st of December.
Oh, we've broken that.
Oh, yeah, I did as well. I broke it in October. I watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Gemma walked in and she nearly hit me over the head with a frying pan because I was watching
the racy
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, well, we've done the Grinch a few times. And what's the one with it? Oh, no, never mind. We've done a few. Right, your question.
Okay, so this isn't a question as such. This is a comment that was posted, because you can comment on the website, the FujiCast website. You can actually leave comments underneath the articles. But this one is from Wallace Shackleton.
All right.
This is quite a long comment, okay, and there's facets to it. So I'm just going to read it out as it came in. Listening to your podcast and the ever ongoing concern about the future of wedding photography. I know you two are hurting financially and the outlook is bleak, but I feel there is one big important point that is being overlooked, in that the whole point of a wedding is the union of two people so that they can be together for life. It is not about photography or hospitality or wedding cars or a whole load of other stuff. It's about a couple wanting to live their lives together. All too often I see photographers at weddings and their importance is blown out of all proportion. It's as if we're there as their models rather than as a photographer being there to record the occasion. I've seen some that have spoiled the ceremony because they have become too obtrusive with their desire to get the shot. My daughter got married last week. We had 20 at the church in total, and luckily the photographer was family. It was certainly an unusual wedding with masks, hand sanitizer, social distancing, social bubbles, and no reception afterwards.
Yeah, so this is obviously prior to lockdown 2.
The feasts, the speeches, and reels will come later when we can have a good old-fashioned blowout with no social distancing. Right. Back in the war was a case of carpe diem, and it still should be today. So what God has joined together, let no virus put asunder.
Well, it's well written.
It's well written and terribly read by me. It's because I got this great big black flipping,
you got the microphone thing in front of you. I know.
Well,
I feel all the better for that.
I mean, it's an important point, and I get it. I hate the conversations we sometimes see on Facebook about, I shot a wedding on the weekend and the vicar told me I had to stand there and I couldn't do anything and he was such a git and blah, 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 blah. And I hate that because, as you know, and as I've mentioned before, I do go to church and everything. So for me, I do understand that should be the most important thing if it's in a church. Of course, most weddings are not in churches these days because a lot of people have no reason to do that if they're not religious. So, yeah, I mean, that is key. But to kind of tar everybody with the same brush like that, I think is a bit sweeping. And I would say 90% of the photographers that I know are very respectful of the environment. And it's certainly not about a model shoot and about the photographers. It's about doing the job we've been paid for. And, ultimately that's what we have to do, or that's what we would like to do, but we can't. So, when Wallace Shackleton says, which I thought was brilliant at the end. So what God has joined together, let no virus put asunder. Yeah, I agree. And I agree for people who want to get married. Some people want to get married still, even during the virus, not for religious reasons, but because they just want to get married and perhaps they want to start a family or, buy a house or all of those things. So there's lots of reasons people still want to get married, even though this virus is causing problems. But also there's lots and lots of photographers out there who are in the frankly, because of this virus. And, I think it's a little bit disproportionate to kind of tar everybody with the same brush there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think wedding photographers do get a bad rap. And I'm afraid every time they're portrayed on television, they come across as just the worst form of I don't know of anybody that practices this thing called photography. They just become sort of a parody of themselves, don't they? And that's a great shame. And I think wedding photographers, like all sorts of photographers, do you need fashion? Have we forgotten why we wear clothes? We don't need to go to a fashion show and have a photographer photograph some clothes to wear them. Of course, no, but that's part of the process, isn't it? It's part of the marketing. Now, weddings aren't marketed, I know. They shouldn't be anyway. It shouldn't be a marketing thing. But they are important events of people, and if they're documented well, they become, like my late mother and father's wedding album is testament to this, that they become really important historical documents for the future. My children never met my mum and dad, much to, that will be as my father said to me, ironically, on the day that he was passing, we knew it was happening, he said to me, that will be my greatest regret that I never get to meet your children. And my greatest regret that he never got to see them was, it wasn't made better, but I do remember very clearly the day that our Jack came in, and he was looking through the wedding books I have at the back of the studio, and he said, what's this one? Because it had mum and dad written on it. And he obviously thought it was going to be his mum and dad. I said, no, that's my mum and dad. And he pulled the book out, and it was my mum and dad's wedding day, photographed beautifully by a photographer who I think was well ahead of his time in the early 60s, in that he was quite a documentary-led photographer as well. And there was Jack looking at my mum and dad, and I say, there you do have other grandparents. They may not be around, but there they are. And that document is just fabulous. And that, for me, underlines why wedding photography, if it's done properly and done for the right reasons, can be such a good thing.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah. Now, as for weddings, and have they become a little bit too commercialised, which I think perhaps Wallace was getting at correctly, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, for me, it hit the low note, as you well know, Kev, when I turned up to find a llama at a wedding. I thought, why is there a llama at this wedding? I
wonder actually, that llama thing, whether there is some kind of religious connection with that. I don't know. Well, I really have no idea because in some cultures and religions, animals have different meanings. Perhaps. I really don't know. I'm
sorry, this is a wedding in Manchester. When have llamas fitted into a standard Anglican wedding in Manchester?
No, but they fit into a curry quite nice.
Kev, you can't say that.
Yeah, 14 months I've gone now without eating anything that could snap or bite or get back at me.
Kev, generally, when food... I know that vegans don't want to necessarily hear this bit, but generally when food comes out, it's not designed to actually be able to snap at you, Kev. But anyway...
Not vegan. Stop saying vegan. I just don't eat things that lived.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
Cheese never lived.
Oh, God, it's so difficult. I thought you'd given up cheese.
I did.
It's the cheese and wine that brings the gout on, man. For heaven's sake.
Stop giving up. Yeah.
You stopped giving up. I've given up.
Yeah.
Right, this week's interview. I spoke months and months ago for a mini-serial on Photography Daily to Ian Treherne, who is the, quotes, blind photographer. I'm going to let him tell you his story, of course, because he tells it as well as any crafted piece of Q material will. But safe to say, I was left thinking nothing seems unachievable when you really have a desire, a will, a wish to do something. Sure, we can play semantics and say, well, I've always wanted to flap my arms and fly, Neil, but you know what I mean. This year has been the year of all years, and not for all the right reasons for many creatives. And so I've re-edited and I'm playing this again to a lot of new ears, unashamedly, because A, we think he's highly inspirational, and B, because we think he's highly inspirational. And at this time in our creative and photographic lives, highly inspirational seems a good platform from which to start. Ian, I think it's important to start with your senses and try and pick apart how you discovered your senses were different, how experience led to diagnosis, because for much of your childhood, though you knew about your hearing, you weren't aware you were in any way different in terms of sight.
Okay. Well, I was born profoundly deaf at the age of 3 months old. So I spent a lot of time in and out of hospital, getting hearing aids fitted and having hearing tests. So instantly from a young age, I knew I was different already.
Yeah.
And not fitting in normal schools, etc. And I really thought that was going to be my only massive issue that I was going to have to contend with in life. But yeah, as I got older, I think more into my teens, I was out with my friends. I was one of those kids that hung out on the street, on the bikes, climbing trees, doing what boys do. And I loved it. But I remember a particular time where I was in the woods and my friends were enjoying themselves and they could see where they were going. And I remember I couldn't see a single thing. It was literally pitch black. And at the age of, sort of 14, I was already questioning, that's a bit weird, that's a bit odd. And so sort of a year later, I got my mother to take me to the opticians. And that's when he said, you need to speak to a specialist because there's something seriously wrong with your eyes. Until that point, I thought my eyes were normal like everybody else's.
Now, I know that this has closed in as the years have gone on, but at that particular stage, how big was that? Was that tunnel, if you like?
It was definitely a little bit bigger than what it was.
We're at 5% now, isn't it?
Yes, because a normal human being has 120 degrees from every angle. So that's a really wide angle lens. I think from what I spoke to with my friend, when they put their hands out like that, if you're looking straight ahead, they can kind of still see their fingers moving.
Yes.
From what I've heard.
Yes.
I can't see anything until my hand is about here.
Literally comes in straight in front of your face.
Literally straight in front. So it's a massive wide window that I've lost. That peripheral vision, is completely black, completely gone.
And did that come in each year? Was it? Could you frankly see it as it was closing in?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Once the doctor told me that I had this eye condition, it was really obvious. Because up until that point, I had nothing to compare it to, and because I hadn't questioned it, to me it was normal. So I was just acting normal in life and just carrying on. But the moment when he said you have the condition, it was just suddenly become so obvious. I was aware of it all day long, every day. From the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed.
Isn't it interesting how nobody around you in your home life had noticed it?
Well, you hit a nail on the head there, my friend. Because what I found out is that you start losing your eyesight around about 9, 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was quite shocked that my parents, not very observant, unfortunately, and they had their own issues regard to marriage and all that kind of stuff. So their children wasn't really that important. So it's quite sad that, it didn't get recognised as early as it should have done. And again, I found out through other family members that they didn't even realise that we were partially deaf. It was my uncle who discovered that, I think your child is hard of hearing or possibly can't hear.
Yeah. And it's the higher frequencies that you can't hear. But you have a hearing aid, and so that means that your communication with those that are your sitters when you're photographing and that doesn't cause so much of an issue?
Deafness is difficult to contend with. Yeah. But I felt that I sort of got the skills as a young kid, to sort of adapt. I've always been on the outside, and I think that's always been something that I will have for the rest of my life. I don't mind, but my deafness, I had normal friends, I hung out with friends, I had pretty normal school life. I went to a normal school, so I kind of felt for a long period of time I had practice to adapt. And I thought, I can deal with this. It's horrible, but then to get at the age of 15, also you're losing your eyesight. It's like a double whammy.
Very much.
So I'll be honest, I found losing my eyesight to be much more difficult. With my hearing, like now I'm wearing my headphones, so I have to wear my headphones. Everything's pretty much turned up to maximum volume. Providing I'm sitting in a quiet environment, I can hear like a fairly normal person.
Yes.
But it gets a little bit more difficult when I'm out, in atmospheric places like
Yes.
bars and things like that.
So now we've established those initial conditions that were thrown at you in life. Along comes photography. At what stage?
When I look back, it's like a combination. I think it's like that for a lot of people. I don't think suddenly just one day you wake up and you want to be in photography. I think you find it's a combination of little things that you've found interesting, and then somehow they come together. But I remember, like, my granddad and my uncle, that was probably one of the only creative people in the family, and he had a pair of binoculars. And as a kid, like, binoculars are like just fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to remember, this is back in the 80s.
No,
so.
I know exactly what you mean. I spent half my time looking through my parents' binoculars the wrong way round because it was just as interesting from the other way, which is odd.
Yeah, I think it's the whole concept of the lens and being able to zoom in.
Yeah.
It's that kind of sort of superpower vision.
Yeah.
So I always found that interesting. And obviously, as a young teenager, I got heavily into films and movies, which I still am today. I'm a complete film nerd.
Yeah. I can see a film poster behind you on the back wall there. Yeah. And another one's just appeared as you moved your head. Yeah. I've got they're everywhere.
Everywhere.
My Skype advantage there.
Yeah, it's like my background. Yeah, I mean, like, my flat really is still like a bit like my bedroom. It has film posters and got my vinyl, my DVD, my books. It's all the basic stuff that I need to keep this brain box ticking over. But watching films, I had such an interest in cinematography and how things were composed, but I didn't really take it any further. And a few years later, when I was in my about 16, 17, I had one of these little cheapy £10 cameras that you put a film in.
Yeah.
And you just take snaps, nothing artistic. I think when you're told you're losing your eyesight, well, for me, I had this sort of sense of urgency of like, oh my God, I'm running out of time. I've got a limit on my eyesight. And so I just felt that I had to capture, document everything that was going on in my life, whether it was being with friends or at work or goofing off or, it's just snaps, really.
So they were those tentative first steps. It was a few years, actually, though, until you considered this could be your professional living.
Really, I only say I started doing it professionally, I think, really sort of 2008, 9. For a long time, I was just sort of divvying about on a Happy Snap camera, but I could sense that, because you've got to remember at that time, I remember digital was still trying to figure itself out in the camera world. There was a bit of I don't know if you remember, there was a bit of a window where there was a lot of shoddy digital cameras. Maybe it was just me.
No, you're absolutely right. I remember shooting with some very early Nikon, depending upon where you're listening to this podcast. Where you couldn't go above ISO, 800, or the world just became a snowstorm. Yeah,
so there was a period where, digital cameras weren't particularly that great, so I didn't really do much. Yeah. But then there was a time that a friend of mine, well, I say a friend, somebody that I met at a pub called the Valway Hotel in Southend, which is a very cool, quirky, artistic, musical pub. Yeah. Doing an open mic night down there. Because I play guitar as well, because I love music.
Yes, I know you do, yeah.
So that's another thing that I love doing, music. So I was doing an open mic night, and he was taking some photos. And so I was just really interested and wanted to check out his camera. And I think it was the first time I thought, oh my God, digital has started to sort of, find its feet. And I was really impressed.
I love this. You have a lot. Do you know what? You collect expressions and sayings. You do. One of my favourites of yours. Photography allows me to participate in the world.
Well, I think without the camera, I'll be quite sort of cut off. Yeah. I think having the camera is a sort of thing that allows me to sort of, be involved in other people's worlds, whether it's theatre or, band or, doing a commission for someone.
And then there's studio, but equally you're just as happy, it seems to me, looking at your Instagram feed, that you're just as happy being out on the street photojournalism.
Yeah, I think a bit like when I went up to Hyde Park, the Black Lives Matter protest.
Yes.
If I just went up there, I would probably get quite anxious, and because being visually impaired in a crowded place is like possibly the worst nightmare for a blind person.
Right.
But having that camera allows me to be creative, to be involved in what's going on in that particular moment. So it just allows me to bridge some kind of sort of connection to other human beings.
How do you feel about being labelled the blind photographer, though? Although it is what you see as the main strapline as soon as I come to your website. So you've used that title.
I really like your question, by the way. You're like asking like the banning questions.
Well, you're very generous. Well, let me build on this one then, because immediately you didn't want your site to be any kind of agenda, Ian. I mean, there's a bit of a gap between launching as a photographer, we're talking about 2008-ish, but then changing up the narrative a bit about yourself to reveal your blindness. When was that?
2010,
right?
11. I did an exhibition for Sense. It was because at that time I still hadn't sort of come out as a blind person. I was still hiding it.
No, I know, because you've only just started using a stick, haven't you? Yeah. But so at that time, nobody really knew about this. No.
It's only really people like Sense and maybe a few of my friends. And doing that exhibition was kind of like dipping my toe into sort of, I hated it. To answer your question, I hated it at the beginning. It made me feel sick.
But you've embraced it now.
Now, yeah. Like now, I had to sort of, after all the processes and sort of things that I'd done, like jobs or everything I'd done, I've sort of questioned and processed it. And I'm very much a person that tries to find light in dark, try to find positive in a massive negative. And for a long time, I thought, I actually want to embrace this and actually, why not? Yeah, I'm a blind photographer. That's what I am. But I think I felt conscious and felt that, maybe people will be like, oh, what does that mean? Or, is this real? Or, or be judged. That's my big thing. And because there wasn't really anyone around, called a blind photographer as such, I'm not like one of these people that, is super confident, in your face, extrovert, all that. That's not me, unfortunately. I wish I was. Yeah. But for me, I was very cagey and conscious about using that phrase. And I remember when that interview went out back in 2010-11, the BBC did a little small article and it was deaf-blind photographer. Yes. And I hated it.
Yes, yeah.
But now I can see that, no, I'm doing something good with it because it's not about me. It's about other blind people that have an interest in photography, which is what I now discovered. There's loads of visually impaired blind photographers out there that have felt that they weren't allowed to be taking photos. And sort of since I popped up on the scene, people are like, oh, it's really cool, you're doing photography, you're blind. It's kind of almost like allowing people to do it.
What do your subjects think? You've got an instant icebreaker when you go into a session with them, haven't you?
Yeah. For a long time, I didn't tell people, people would be none the wiser. But now I always tell people straight away, just let you know, I have an eye condition. I don't have any peripheral vision. And so, like you say, it opens up a conversation. And I think people are interested. Like when I was growing up, and it's still pretty much the same now, and I think this is why it's so layered, that when I was growing up, there was really one box of what a blind person should fit in. They should either be using a white cane or a guide dog and having their specs on and pretty much not really doing anything in life. There are just these people that you feel sorry for. The only two blind people I knew growing up was Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. But they were so far away from my spectrum of being able to connect with these people. And I think it's only really over the last sort of few years, especially with the younger generation, they've inspired me to be comfortable with what condition I got, and really embrace it and not be embarrassed, because I was embarrassed. I've been embarrassed of my blindness for a long time. I think people are thinking differently now about mental health and disability. Yeah, probably the same as you. Like when I was growing up in the 80s, 90s, it was not really.
Well, I don't believe we talked about it much at home at all. I really don't. I want to steer you back to the photography, if I may. I'm personally inspired by those chasing the shadows and the low key greats, and I know you are too, where you literally chisel the light so that your subjects find themselves enveloped as much by the dark as by the light. And I wonder, Ian, if your eyesight guides you towards this particular style.
Yeah, I like being almost like want to get inside people's mind and their body, because I know a lot of people generally are quite, most of the people that I photograph are very insecure, very shy, not a big fan of the camera, which I completely understand.
It's interesting though, because it's interesting because you've photographed so many well-known people that you should say that.
Yeah. I just love getting inside people's mind and try and sort of pull out their confidence and what I see, what's sort of lingering behind their insecurities, and I want to show them this is what you do look like. You just don't see it. You've not seen it from anyone else. So I want to show you that. But again, when I go back, like my first thing that I ever did as a kid was always drawing with pencil. Yeah. I was always sketching with pencil, HB pencil. And when I've looked at my old work, not quite recently, it's almost very similar to my photography.
Is it?
Yeah, lots of shadows, high contrast, lots of highlight. It's about the mood. It's the atmosphere. I don't know, it makes me tingle. It's all about the light and the shadows for me.
And actually that's supported by what it says on your website as well. Ian's eye condition, which by default naturally cropped the world around him, gives him a unique eye for capturing moments in time. That crop actually, I don't want to use a clumsy expression here and say it could have offered you an advantage, because I'm sure you'd argue that, but it has provided you with a perspective that not a lot of other photographers have.
Somebody did say, have you got an advantage? And I'll be honest, I find that quite an unusual question.
Yes, and I felt a bit unusual posing it.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of my friends disagree with me, but I don't see it as an advantage. It's more to do with the fact that I have limitations, and it's about what I can get out or squeeze out of that small window using stubbornness, creativity. I think that's really it. That is really, it's the foundation of being stubborn, that I make myself want to do it because I love doing it. It's something I love doing anyway, whether I had full eyesight or this condition. It just happens that I had this eye condition and I'm working with a small window. But I have to work 10 times harder, scanning. Because when I look through the viewfinder, I can't see the whole window of the viewfinder. I still only see a small area. So I have to scan. I work really hard, with what I'm, looking at and trying to achieve. I'm a very fast worker in that aspect. Like I said to someone the other day that it's all about the limitations. I don't have anything else, and I appreciate that I had this small window that I got. And so I aim to use it to its full potential. And if I can do some positivity along with disability, incorporating photography, that would mean the world to me.
Because I did ask before we started the interview whether photography was a full-time engagement for you, but it's not really. I mean, you're a multifaceted, multi-layered operator, as you've already suggested, actually. Because
wasn't intended.
You're working with sense. You're helping people cope with isolation and loneliness. Just two of the things that you're helping people with. How did that come about?
Well, I had a mental breakdown 2014 after my life dramatically changed in 2012. Though my eyes were already bad, my eyes got worse, and in the space of a year, I lost my job. I had to hand in my driver's license, so I couldn't drive anymore.
No.
Recession was happening. I couldn't sell my flat, so I was bankrupt. So I had this terrible couple of years where I knew my life was completely changing, and I had to find a way to be involved with the world, participating in the world. I knew that my old life was ended and that I really wanted to sort of delve into photography. But then once I delved into photography, I started analysing everything, looking at what I see on TV, what I see in fashion or anywhere generally. I was like, oh, that should be different and that should change. So once I hooked up with Sense, we had the same kind of outlook, and I'm thinking, I kind of describe myself as a bit of like a Keith Richards ambassador. I'm like this scruffy long hair artist person, but I think they like that because I've been a bit of a different side, a different type of person.
Oh, very much.
And I think this is what I'm discovering. It's all team effort. It's teamwork. Everyone's got something that they can offer. And so for me, I want to bring photography, disability, mental health, all together. It's one thing. Going back to I had a breakdown that lasted for a few years, so I did a lot of work for Scent. So obviously experiencing a lot of isolation, being completely cut off from the world. I mean, I literally, went Sid Barrett style, completely off grid, and bizarrely, when I did decide to hook up with Sense again after being quiet, I went to see the main guy that runs Sense, called Richard, and that was how I got the job for the Undateables. I didn't apply for the Undateables.
Yes, for anybody who's listening to this in America or somewhere else in Europe, the Undateables is a Channel 4 show.
Yeah, it's a Channel 4.
Channel 4 show. Yeah. And it aims to bring people together that have had difficulties in finding a match in terms of love. They featured you. I think you were the opening scene for you. I think I remember was you were in a hot air balloon.
Yeah. That was a beautiful surprise.
Yeah.
That was arranged by my cameraman, the guy who was interviewing me.
Oh my word!
Yeah, it was organised by him. I struck up a really good friendship with him. We really hit it off, and because a lot of people, like I say, honestly, it's so layered. People said to me, "Why did you go on that program?" People said, "Oh, I don't like that program because it says undateables." Yeah. But you got to remember, these are all opinions coming from people that don't have blindness or deafness or any other kind of disability, so they don't really understand. And that is the whole point of doing the program, because I had to sort of explain to people that I have felt undateable. When you're wearing hearing aids and you're deaf, you are already, you've got a lot against you. Dating's hard. When you got very big disabilities, it does put people off. And it was something, which was why I didn't tell people for a long time that I was going blind, because I didn't want people to treat me any differently. But hiding it doesn't work, hence why I had a breakdown, because it's not the right way to go about doing things. And so when I went on that program, when I was asked to go on there, it was such a great experience to show people, like I said, we're going back to this stereotypical box that I've been brought up with. This one box. And in this day and age now, there are so many different boxes, but we are now teaching the public those variations. It's not just one thing. For instance, I have a friend who's a skateboarder. He's blind. He uses a white cane when he does his skateboarding tricks. So there's all different variations of how people work around their blindness. I'm not saying every blind person does it, because everyone is different. It does come down to their personality.
So in the end, the Undateables was a positive experience for you, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
And actually, was it from that you then thought, well, I'm going to use my white cane? And that was a program that made so much difference to you in all sorts of ways and on many, many levels. Totally.
I mean, everything you just said there, the program gave me the confidence to start embracing the white cane, which was something that I would have never done before. Because what I get all the time is, but you look so normal. That's the thing. Yeah, I know I look normal, but I'm 95% blind. So that's the kind of thing that I try to educate people, that you can't judge a book by its cover.
Why don't you use an assistant, by the way? I'm intrigued. Wouldn't that make some of your life a bit easier with some of the... Because I know that there are some jobs that you say you can't do. I'm intrigued which they are, but an assistant...
Weddings.
Wedding, yeah. maybe you're not missing too much at the moment. Is that the kind of thing that prevents you? Right, okay. So it's if you like the social photography arena, some of those jobs which would be harder.
I mean, I'll be able to, I have done wedding, but I've always been happier being the second photographer, not the main. Because I've got to be realistic, because I have to, like, working with these knackered eyeballs, I get really tired. I get migraines. I get headaches.
Do you? Okay.
So I have to balance, what I can be doing and probably what I shouldn't be doing. So... And it's those kind of challenges that I give myself to do these things, because they're not easy. Because for somebody else, with full eyesight, they'll be out there just doing what they're doing and not really think much more about it. I have to work at a militant level, of planning, and I think that's probably why I work on my own quite a bit, because I don't have to worry about anyone else. Because if I've got someone with me, I can't see them half the time. I'm worrying about what they're doing, and I'm probably going to miss that shot. So if I work on my own, I can just work within my own boundaries, and if I feel it's getting a bit too much, I just take myself out of the crowd, choose a different area, maybe on the outside or somewhere a little bit different.
And our thanks to Ian Treherne. Of course, you can see Ian's work. We'll have a link to it on the FujiCast.co.uk show page for today's episode. Just a quick mention for my other photography podcast title, which is Photography Daily. Today, when you finished here, there's an interview that I recorded with LA and Hollywood portrait photographer Michael Greco, who was a great inspiration to me, actually, personally, when I was first shooting portraits. I actually built a sideways, or was it upside down, studio set. Thank you to this man. We're also talking this week with Miss Anne Harriman, the first black male photographer to shoot a Vogue UK cover for a project that holds some very strong personal motivation. Charlene Winfred talks Singapore street photography, and David Butow is a photojournalist who spent some time in the Oval Office this year. He has some interesting stories. That's on Photography Daily, available like this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Right, back to your questions. This one's from Stephen Royce. Very simple. X-T1, X-T2, X-T3, X-T4, they just get better and better and better. Have Fuji shot themselves in the foot, boys? Do we need an X-T5? Is there an X-T5 on the way? Is this your way of announcing that you know something we don't? I mean, that wouldn't be around for a while, would it? But yeah, he's got a point.
He's got a very good point. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you never think, what can I improve? And that's the same for every brand, of course. It's not just them. But, I feel like sensor-wise, I'm not sure they can do much more with APS-C. Really don't know. There's all that. You hear this word, the global shutter, global sensor, organic sensor, global shutters, things like that.
What do they mean?
I have no idea what those are.
I thought for a minute you were going to educate me there.
No, I don't.
Right.
I have a feeling that a global shutter is one where you don't need, I know I'm probably way off the mark here. This might just even be a dream of mine. Global shutter might be where you don't need to worry about light. You can just click away and you don't have to worry about like opening the aperture up to get enough light in and various things like that. So I think that's more of a dream than anything. But yeah, I mean, you could write down a list now. You could say, right, what could the X-T1 be improved with? And you would probably start thinking about the stuff that you've got currently in your X-T3 or X-T4 and think, that would have been great in the X-T1. But now, if you ask the same question of the X-T4, how could you improve the X-T4? You'd be like, I don't know.
Well, when I saw the question, now I did think that. I thought, okay, let's have some... Oh, no, you got image stabilization, yeah. So that was that kind of thing that was going through my mind. I really couldn't think of anything, really.
And the point about shooting yourself in the foot, and no, actually, I think Fujifilm are the masters of getting a lot out of sensors. And you only have to look at the X-T3, X-T4. It's the same sensor. They've got two very, very good selling cameras. In fact, if you throw the X Pro into the mix, they're using the sensors. Sony do the same thing with their different cameras, of course. But you've got little bits and pieces. Canon used to do it with the 5Ds, didn't they? They would have some stuff in the 5D that wasn't in the 1D, and a bit more stuff that was in the 1D range. That's just good marketing. They're there to make money out of us, and they do. So yeah, it will keep going. They will keep going. Of course, they will keep going. Things will get bigger and smaller, and new technology and 5G stuff. That's my dream. Take a picture, have it edited in the cloud, get home, just
put your feet up and watch more Christmas movies, whatever time of year it is. I keep thinking that I really would like, how Canon had the cinema range of cameras. I keep thinking that would be great to see a Fujifilm version of that, something that does have the XLR inputs for the sound, something that's a little bit bigger in the hands. I think when you're filming, something that's slightly more substantial is a really good, particularly if you're handheld, at being a bit more stable. They're good things.
Yes, but don't forget that Fujifilm or the Fujifilm Corporation are one of the major suppliers to the film industry, motion film industry, with their Fujinon stuff.
Yeah. Which is why I'd love to see it.
Yeah, well, it's all out there. It's huge, and it's all mostly rental stuff. So they've got a market for that, and they're doing very well in that marketplace. But yeah, I think was it Panasonic that had a camera that looked like a camera, had a bit of almost like a big battery grip at the bottom that had an XLR input in the back. That would be cool. But then I think the batteries and power, and it's different. If you can stick a massive battery in like you can with the Canons, then it's different. But
that's why the camera would need to be much bigger. But yeah, I'm just, and it's because of that reason that there's so much good glass around that it would be fantastic to have a cinema range of cameras from Fujifilm. But what I wouldn't want to happen is then what I think happened at Canon for quite a while, which was that I felt that the 5D, for example, was always a bit hamstrung because, we're not going to put peaking in this. Why would we do that? Because we want you to buy a cinema camera. Why would we put zebras in this when that would mean that you wouldn't need to? Why would we stabilize? All those questions.
Yeah, but that's marketing, isn't it? That's product. Same as cars, isn't it? Why?
But that's one thing I think there's.
Do you want a sunroof? You have to get the GT line.
That's true.
I want a sunroof in the not GT line. Well, you can't.
But that's one thing I think Sony and Fujifilm are the only. I don't know much about the Olympus range, to be honest. So you might shout at the whatever you're listening to this on and say we already do that as well. But that's what I thought Sony and Fuji have always done really, really well. Is that they haven't hamstrung us. They've said, look, if you want focus peaking, have focus peaking. Zebras, have that. No worries at all. If you want to be able to film and make stills, then fine. Which I know the Canon cameras do, but there were always tiny little, sort of really finicky kind of, if only they could have this, which I always thought Sony and Fuji did really, really well.
What I'd like to happen in Fujifilm cameras, which I think used to do, because I had a 5D one, which could do film in, I think, 5D something.
Yeah.
And what you used to be able to do with that is film.
It wasn't 5D2, wasn't it? 5D2 was where the
5D2 was it? Yeah. You used to be able to film and then press the shutter button and take a still, and then it would carry on filming.
Yes.
I'd love to see that come to the XT range. That'd be cool.
A bit like when you take your mobile phones out. So you're filming, and then you press the other little white button in the screen. It grabs a still of that moment.
Oh, well, I didn't know my phone could do that.
But there we go.
Yes, exactly like that, effectively.
If my iPhone can do it, I'm sure your Huawei can.
Yeah.
Right, book.
Okay, so today's book is John Chilllingworth. John Chilllingworth, picture post photographer. And for those of you that don't know the picture post or are unfamiliar with it, picture post was at one point, I think, the number one kind of visual journal, magazine, whatever you want to call it.
What, above Life?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Life was global, wasn't it? It was US based and global. I think this was mostly British picture post stuff.
Okay.
But similar process. So I've checked again that it's available, and it is still available. John Chilllingworth, picture post photographer. It's available on Amazon. and it's reasonable. It's about £20, and the spiel, because of course I can't show you the pictures again, which is very difficult. Is it says something like along the lines of, at the age of 22, John Chillingworth was the youngest member of the team of photographic journalists on the magazine. He worked alongside many other great photographers, staffers and freelancers, including Bert Hardy,
really,
Kurt Hutton, Felix Mann, Bill Brandt, Thurston Hopkins, Grace Robertson, and Leonard McComb. And so basically the pictures in this book are his pictures that made the picture post. And there's loads. It's black and white color. It's a square format. I would say it's probably 8 inches by 8 inches. Yeah. It's not huge, but it's I would say there's probably maybe 150 pages, something like that. But it's interesting because once again, it's one of those books that I feel like the design of the book isn't perfect because it's square. So you've got a lot of the images are 3x2 or 6x4, and so they're going across the spine, the bend. And I don't particularly like that, but I do like the fact that most of the images are one image per spread, if you like, and then just simple text. So I'm looking at page 16 right now, and it's beautiful, beautiful picture, very grainy, really all black and white. 1951, January 1951. It's 2 women on the tube. It's called Taking the Tube. These women, they're probably in their late 60s, something like that. They couldn't look more like they are about to eat a child. They are the child captures.
Oh, Kev.
Terrible. Well, no, honestly, they look terrifying. But it's a brilliant picture, absolutely brilliant. They both got their little hats on. One of them's got some flowers, very, very sets the scene perfectly. And he's titled this, Taking the Tube, Old Ladies Born in the 19th Century Still Travelling on the London Underground in the 1950s. There we go. So 19th century. So I'm just going to flip through some colour stuff here.
While you're flipping there, I was just reading, by the way, that the picture post itself, after only 2 months, the picture post was selling 1,700,000 copies. Wow. What new release of a magazine could possibly reach those heady heights that quickly these days?
Well, I know it's impossible now with digital stuff, isn't it? People can get all the images online. But yes, I mean, brilliant. I mean, you can. Some of the picture posts, some of the early editions of picture posts are worth a pretty penny these days.
Do you know who has some?
Collectors.
Giles has them. He has them in proper plastic protection sleeves, and I think there's some of his proudest things that he owns. I'm not allowed to touch them when I go round. I'm allowed to look at them from afar. Yeah, no, they're worth archiving because eventually it will all go away. Page 22, Blackpool nightlife. It doesn't look too. So this picture is from 1954, but it looks very similar to what Blackpool looks like now. Actually, kind of a tea van selling tea with one of those big silver urns of tea. Yeah. Love those things. Rainy Holiday on page 25. That's never changing in this country either.
It's a brilliant picture, actually. There's 2 women. You can't see their faces. Shot from behind. They're in bathing suits. This is 1954, and they've got their umbrella up because it's pouring with rain. They're sat on this beach that's just pebbles, and you can see the grey, muddy water lapping at their feet. It looks horrible. It looks just like, why would you be there? And then interestingly, kind of some of the more historic stuff, I suppose. They've got, I'm flipping to page 31 here. So they've got the SS United States watched by the people that building the boats on the harbour, Mersey tugboat, 1954, 1952, a lot of workers and stuff. Some of my favourite ones are the street parties, though. We're of a generation where we used to have street parties as kids. Do you remember? I remember when we lived in the first house. Actually, it was technically the second house I lived in Newport. A big long avenue of old Victorian houses, and all the kids used to just play in the streets, run around, knock on each other's doors. Everybody called each other's mum and dad, auntie and uncle, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, I think it was for Princess Diana and Prince Charles's wedding, and we had this. I'd never seen a table as long in my entire life. It went all along the street, this table. We had bunting up, and there was the jelly and ice cream and all that kind of stuff. It was amazing. It's one of my kind of famed in memories of early childhood.
I think the earliest one I remember was from 77. During the war.
The Jubilee,
Silver Jubilee. Yeah. That's when we had one in our close.
Yeah. We would have had one, but I was only 4 at that point. What were you? You would have been about 22 then, I suppose.
Shut up.
But yeah, so these are some of my favourite pictures. Coronation tea time. So this is 1953. As the children of Morpeth Street sat down for their coronation tea, every one of the onlookers whose hard-earned contributions made it all possible glowed with pleasure as the youngsters tucked into off-ration cakes and jam. Oh, love it.
No, I don't remember rationing before you say it. Do you remember rationing during the war? No, I don't remember rationing. Yeah.
This is a great picture as well. Page 57, Cotton Mill Workers, April 1952. It's brilliant. It's a beautiful picture because obviously it's very different now. So you've got there's a handful of guys all stood on a street corner, essentially waiting to be chosen to go and go to the mills. And if they got picked, they get paid for the day, and if they didn't, they didn't. 1952, of course, a lot of unemployment in the country. But interestingly, they're well-dressed men, and they've got some of them have got ties on, and they're all shaved. They all look like they're going to work for the day. Obviously no cars. The background is sparse. There's no yellow lines or anything like that in those days. So the streets are all cobbled. It's a really nice picture of quite a sad scene, really. Yeah. But it's that thing we always talk about, isn't it? The what was then a benign picture that everybody would see every morning on that street corner is now so powerful because history has passed and it becomes something we need to know about. And that's why the rules on street photography being chopped up so much anger me so much.
Are you convinced that a picture post these days in print just would not work? Because there are many magazines though that people still buy. The shelves, you go into WH Smith, other shops are available. You will see rows and rows and rows of magazine titles.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that, potentially, but with the internet and Instagram and various things like that, I don't. Picture Post was probably did so well because it was the only place you could see those pictures.
Yeah.
And of course now it's not. Thomas over at Fujilove has just released. He's called it Frames, and I haven't seen an edition of it, but people have been telling me it's absolutely beautiful. So he's essentially curated some images, or him and his team, and he's created a journal magazine. I think it's quarterly, and it's high end print. One of those kind of journals that turns up and it smells. It just smells beautiful. It's relatively expensive, but the people that have kind of invested in it, I think it's absolutely amazing. So there are people out there, of course, but I don't know, do they still make the Beano, for example, or has that gone online?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm not I'd like to think they do. As part of my
they probably still do. They probably still do, but I would imagine it doesn't sell anywhere near as much as it used to.
And there were a lot of do you remember comics? As growing up as a lad, there was one called, I think it was called Tiger. That was the one that I had, featuring, I don't know, stories like Billy's Boots. You can write in if you remember Billy's Boots. But that was the kind of thing that that doesn't exist anymore. You're right. Those once upon a time comics that would take up a whole shelf probably only take up less than a third. It's the way it is. It's not negative. It's not positive. It's just the way it is. But I mean, and also people, the press and the journals and stuff, they don't really commission. I mean, there is commissions going on, of course, but you're not going to get paid really well for doing a story like perhaps they used to. Same for the newspapers, isn't it? So I don't know. It's tough. I would love to see something like Picture Post. Yeah. Maybe there is still something a little bit like it. We just don't know. So the book itself, though, that of Picture Post, it's still available.
Yes. So John Chillingworth, Chillingworth, Picture Post photographer, currently available on Amazon for £19.99.
Perfect.
However, if you're in the UK and you want it, be quick, because it says only 2 left in stock.
Right. Well, do you know, a couple of weeks ago when you mentioned the book, I went out and bought it the very next day. I'm not going to do that. That would be unfair. But
which book?
I've just put it up here. It was the... hold on, Kev, I can't remember. I bought a few books you recommended. Daily... Right at the back of the studio. Daily Encounters.
Oh, the
Lovely.
pictures from Fleet Street.
Yes.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah. I went.
Did you use our affiliate link on the website to buy it?
No, I forgot. Sorry, Kev. Yes, I did. I used the affiliate link as you told me to on the website.
If you don't back us, how can we expect other people to back us?
I know. You're absolutely correct. It's bloody absurd.
Don't be rude.
Enough of you as well. I'm replacing you from next week.
Yes.
Right, your question.
Okay, so I have a question here from Lev Petersov of Chatham, New Jersey, USA. He says, for now, in brackets. Hi, Neil and Kevin. Love your podcast. Looking forward to every episode. Yada, 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 yada. I've been playing around with street photography, macro, and other forms, but find it difficult to motivate myself long term, just like with running. If I don't have a race to train for, I find it difficult to make myself get out there for a run.
Yeah.
I guess I need something tangible to work for, something more than 1,000 images on my hard drive. What would you recommend I do to keep my photo mojo going?
Projects, series. I've been learning a lot about series, talking to photographers of late. Not necessarily series that they're making because they're going to publish them, but works of particular sort of focused works that they think, that's what I'm doing as a series that can become 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, 3 years, doesn't matter. But I would that would be I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you need an objective, of course,
yes,
and that it is the hardest thing, though, isn't it? It's today I fancy going out and taking pictures, and then you end up just taking snaps then because you've got nothing to really look for. And it's one of the things that we've mentioned on this podcast many times is if you have something to look for and you have a project, a theme, even if it's very simple like a color, then it will give you a little bit more more kind of get up and go and shoot. I've got lots of little ongoing long-term projects. I love photographing old people in love.
Right,
that's
old people in love. Oh.
Yeah, so if I see old people holding hands, that's it, I'm after them. I'm taking their picture.
So do you ask them, or are you? Are they street style, or do you stop them? And not a portrait then?
No. I either get in front of them and take a street shot. Sometimes they're from behind, whatever. But yeah, but the thing is, like right now, I've got literally no motivation whatsoever for photography. It's really sad. It's just.
Is that right?
Yeah, I just don't have it. It's. Yeah, I just don't. It's, I'm like...
And that's been driven by this wretched period, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's really sad because I'm seeing some beautiful pictures from other people. I'm not really taking pictures at home much, a couple of snaps here and there, but, it's just, I'm just like...
I found that the photo walk thing that I've been doing for the other title, that's been the thing that has been, that has... energize me photographically. I've thought, right, once a week I have to, because I've committed to it, because it's a podcast, that Friday photo walk thing that I do. I'm committed. I have to go do it, and that's really helped me to engage with making images again. Now they don't necessarily have a theme, of course, because they're wherever I happen to be walking that week. So it's a bit hit and miss in that respect. There's no sort of clear reason for it, bar the fact that I need to make a small library of, well, if you want to call them snaps, that I'm going to use in the library to go in the show notes alongside that episode. I found that's been, I've never done that before. Prior to this, I don't think I'd ever done anything like that.
No, I mean that's good because it is, you're using that as the vehicle for it, which is perfect. But it's, I've had loads of ideas. Honestly, I was watching a film last night on the telly, and I just got this idea, and as I usually do, I sent myself an email from my phone, to remind me. Then this morning I looked at the email and then I just deleted it.
Oh no, Kev! What was the idea?
Oh, I'm not telling you. It's secret.
Yeah, but it could have been a great idea and you've deleted it. Can you remember it?
I can remember it, yeah. Right. I might still do it. But it's, the thing is, I looked at the email and I was like, well, I can either leave that email in my inbox, I can jot it down somewhere, I can add it to my Microsoft to-do list, or I can just delete it.
Yeah.
So I deleted it.
What makes a body of work? How many do you have to have before it becomes a body of work?
I don't think there's any specific amount of numbers, is there? But you're probably not gonna pay to go to an exhibition or buy a book that's only got one image in it.
No, sure. So what is it? 20, 30, 40?
I don't know. I mean, I I think when I've listened to people speak about that kind of thing, they always have this kind of grand, airy, floaty idea that you just know when you've finished your project. It just feels like you've completed.
Zen.
Yeah, zen. And I'm like, well, then my pictures of all people in love, I don't feel like I've completed it because there's loads of old people left. And so, what's a body of work? It depends what you're doing with it. If it's for if you're commissioned or if it's for a specific exhibition or a book, then obviously it has to fit the parameters of that, the geography, the landscape of the exhibition, the layouts of the book, etc. But if it's for your own personal benefit, which, let's be honest, the vast majority of this is, then whatever works. I suppose you and I, we both do it. We do a book every year of the family snaps we've taken, and that's a project, isn't it?
Well, Sam does. Sam is the curator of that. I'm the worst when it comes to making sure I get pictures of the family. I really am. She's much better than me. But I remember when I originally, Giles, who I talk about, I know, it was like, I've only got two friends in the world, you and Giles. That's not quite true. But the reason for me meeting up with Giles in the first place is I went to an exhibition which was on the old airbase, and it was an exhibition they'd sort of got put aside a small area for exhibiting art and photographs, and he was exhibiting a photograph, an exhibition called Skies, and it was purely him. I think from pictures that he'd made at the airbase, maybe, I don't know. But it was just pictures of the sky. And it was a room, and some of these were huge prints, and then some smaller prints. And I thought that was about as far removed from Giles's life as a photographer in Iraq, etc., with the army. But it was glorious. I love that.
Yeah, motivation is hard, and it's not always just ideas of projects. It's life as well. Sometimes life can get in the way of things, and time and all that kind of stuff.
You sound like Marvin. Do you know who Marvin is?
Isn't the alien at the end of the world?
No, he's the paranoid android. And from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when he says, "Life, don't talk to me about life."
Yeah.
All the doors in this spaceship have a happy disposition. Can't bear them. I'm reading that book with Jack at the moment. Brilliant. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Well, that is it, Kev. We're done for another week. We might be done for next week if we don't get any questions.
Yeah.
So I suppose, what do they call it? Gauntlet thrown down. Gauntlet thrown down. You need to send us some questions via click at fujicast.co.uk, or you can go in via the shiny new-ish website and send via the contact form. And of course, you could do it on the Facebook page as well, can't you, Kev?
Yeah. Or you could write us a letter.
Yeah.
When was the last time you had a handwritten letter?
I haven't had a handwritten letter for a long, long time.
No.
There's only
my handwriting is terrible. I'd love to write letters, but my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. I should have been a doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
We could spend hours deciphering it. But if you can send a letter in that's not like one that Kev would have written, then that I suppose that would be nice, yeah. And mention for those that are in Patreon, Kev, because we haven't done a mention of new members for a little while. We probably should over the next couple of weeks, shouldn't we? If we're here, of course, next week. Having said that, but thank you. If you want to support the show for the price of a cup of coffee, keep it growing and, more importantly, going. And thanks as well.
How long did it take you to think of that?
They come to me in the middle of the night, Kev. What I do is I write them down, and then I screw them up and I throw them in the bin like your ideas.
I don't want to know about your growing and going in the middle of the night. Thank you very much.
Oh, I see the connotation you're talking. Well, I thought it was quite a good one, but
it is good.
Maybe I need to work on that one just a little bit more. Thank you to Ian Treherne, our fabulous guest today, and we will be back here maybe next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.